All right. In the interest of time, we are going to go ahead and get started with today's training. I will echo Kristen and thanking you all so much for being willing to poll greet. Thank you for being on the training. We are like overexcited to have so many people show up and be willing to go out there and poll greet. My name is Bridget Ferguson. I'm the training vice chair for the Buncombe County Dems. I want to acknowledge the other board members who are on the call with me as well. We just heard from our leader, the chair, Kristen, the lovely Miss Terry, who is our communications vice chair for the board, and newly elected vice chair for our board, Ken, is on the line as well. So I appreciate all of you for being on. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the training. If this is your first time poll greeting, we appreciate you. If it is your second time poll greeting, we appreciate you. We just appreciate all of you again for being out. We know that when we go to the polls, there's always the poll greeters who are out there to greet us, but there's more to it, right, than just showing up and sitting in the seats. So today we're going to go through some poll greeting training basics. Again, if you have questions, throw those in the chat. We'll also try to leave a little time at the end of the call to get anything that we just, have to have a burning discussion about. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first, we want to make sure that we understand the roles at the polling place. We're here today to do poll greeter training. Sometimes your poll worker, the poll observer, poll greeter are used interchangeably, or people get confused on which one they're talking about. So we want to discuss the difference in those first. A poll worker, those people are inside of the polling place, right? They're paid temporary employees of the Board of Elections. They're trained, scheduled, and managed directly by the Board of Elections. They're responsible for running the polling place, getting it open, getting supplies there, and things like that. And they assist voters officially and escalate issues to the precinct judge. A poll observer is allowed to observe and take notes on the voting process. They are strictly prohibited from interacting with voters, and they must report issues to the chief judge and not intervene directly. And then what we're here for today are poll greeters. So we're outside of that buffer zone. We'll talk about that buffer zone a little later in the call. It is a volunteer position. You're stationed strictly outside of the polling place, again, past that buffer zone. You're welcoming voters and providing a friendly first impression. And we also provide information, support turnout, and answer those general questions for our voters. Next, we'll talk about the purpose of poll greeting, right? Purpose is the reason for something. So, what is the reason that a poll greeter position was even created? We want to provide a friendly, helpful first impression to arriving voters. Another purpose is to share key information before voters enter the polling place. You are the last conversation that voter will have before they go in and make that decision and vote. Another purpose is to encourage turnout and support all Democratic candidates, to identify and report problems or intimidation. And another purpose, of course, is to recruit and connect neighbors to volunteer opportunities. So if someone is out there to vote, they're going to be most likely willing to volunteer, right? They want to get involved with the party. Remember that you are the face of the party at the polls. So all the way down from DNC to the North Carolina Democrats to the Buncombe County Democrats, you are an extension of the Buncombe County Democrats. We are all the face of the party at the polls. Reasons to be a poll greeter, right? Why want to be a poll greeter? So I know that some of you are a poll greeter for different reasons. Some of those reasons to be a poll greeter are to demonstrate enthusiasm for Democrats. It's the last chance, again, to inform and influence the voters. Again, you're that last conversation before they go into the voting booth. It's an opportunity to recruit new volunteers. Again, if people are coming to vote, then we can most likely encourage them to get more involved and volunteer with us in other ways. We're also there to help communicate problems or threats to officials. You also are
Well,
going to make Sure that other Dems feel welcome and supported. If you're not muted, if you'll just be sure that you're on mute so we don't have feedback for everybody. Thank you. We want to make other Dems feel welcome and supported. We are going to promote all Democratic primary election candidates. So during the primaries, remember that we are supporting everyone. There's neutrality. We just want to make sure that we're supporting all the Democratic candidates. You can also answer general questions about voting. It is effective for down the ballot races. And then most importantly, it's fun. So hopefully you are coming out to have fun when you come out to poll greet. If you are poll greeting, you have to be at least some sort of a people person, right? At least a little bit, because you're going to be interacting with people. So it's just fun to get out there and be with your fellow Democrats and help poll greet. Your energy makes a difference at the polls. Be prepared beforehand. So when you're going to poll greet, you want to make sure that you are prepared. One thing you want to do is make sure that you know your location. Drive by the polling site beforehand to identify your table location and where to park. You may have lived here for years or all your life. You know where the library is, you know where the fire station is, but you still want to drive by and make sure that you know where to go, where our tent is going to be set up, and where you're going to be able to park. You want to dress appropriately. So wear comfortable shoes and weather appropriate gear. If it's cold out, of course, make sure you have a coat, hat, umbrella, whatever you need. Remember that these shifts are 2 hours, so you're going to be outside the polling place. So just make sure that you make yourself as comfortable as you can. You want to stay sustained. So bring plenty of snacks and water, whatever your preferred beverage is. If you want to bring some, peanuts or whatever's going to keep you happy there, just make sure that you keep yourself sustained when you're at the polls. Arrive early. So this kind of goes again with knowing your location. If you can, arrive approximately 10 minutes early for parking and for a smooth transition. You may have to get some information from the person that you are relieving. There may be things that have happened. Maybe the lines are long. Maybe there's been a situation that you should be aware of and something you need to be looking out for. But if you arrive at least 10 minutes early, that gives you time to park. It gives you time to speak to the person, whoever you're taking their place, and make sure that you, again, have a smooth transition between the shifts. Power up, fully charge your phone, and bring a portable power bank if you have one. You are going to need to possibly make phone calls. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you need to reach out to headquarters or something like that and your phone's dead. So just make sure that you are fully charged when you reach the polls. And then for managed downtime, this just means during the primaries, it's going to be a little slower than a general election, right? So you're going to have a lot of downtime. You may only have a couple of people who come vote in the 2 hours that you're sitting out there. So if you want to bring a book or crossword puzzles, crochet, whatever you want to do during that time, bring something to keep yourself occupied. We want to make sure that we keep the voter first and in mind, and that you're always looking up and making sure that you're looking for those voters coming in, but you also don't want to be bored to death if you're there for a 2 hour shift and nobody shows up. And then on-site resources, poll grading instructions will be printed out and available at each site for your reference. So we'll have a little slip down in those boxes, that we're the bins that we'll have available at each one of the early voting sites. And one of those things will be greeting instructions for you to look back on, and for anyone who may not have an opportunity to join one of the trainings. First impressions we know are very important. So we have to nail that greeting. When we are seeing our voters come in, we want a hi, right? Hi, thank you for being a voter. We want to make sure that they understand that we appreciate them coming out. They don't have to come out and vote, but we need them to come out and vote. So we want to make sure that the voters know that we appreciate them for being a voter. Position yourself in the view of arriving voters. Now, that does not mean go to the car and stand and wait for them to get out of the car, but it just means when people are getting out of the car and they're coming to the line, make sure that they see you, make sure that they know your presence is there, right? Stand up and make eye contact with those voters. Smile, be very friendly and energetic. Nobody wants to come look at you and you're like not making eye contact and you don't look energetic, you don't look happy to be there. We want to make sure that people know that we're happy to be out there Poll greeting. Speak loudly and clearly. Engage voters before they approach you. So again, that doesn't mean go to their car or anything like that, but you want to make sure when they're coming to the line that you go speak to them and you make them again aware of your presence and let them know why you're there. And then be friendly to all the voters, Republicans, doesn't matter who it is. We have to be friendly to all voters. What is vote tripling? So this is a turnout strategy that the North Carolina Democratic Party is pushing. It has been proven to increase Democratic turnout. We took a softer approach than the North Carolina Democrats, but basically, if you are whole greeting and you are interacting with someone and you're having a conversation, you can ask them, can you text three people right now and remind them to vote? Or do you know three people that you can text right now and remind them to vote? Everyone may not remember to vote. It's the primaries. They may not remember that they should be out there voting. So again, this strategy has been proven to increase Democratic turnout. It's relational organizing. Friends trust friends, right? So if I call my girlfriend and I say, hey, did you make it to the polls today? Or did you remember that it's time to vote? Or I call my son and I say, hey, did you go vote? Remember I told you to go vote? Those people are going to be more likely to go vote, right? Than just receiving a text message from Buncombe County Dems or some automated text message. And then you just want to again make the ask, will you or can you text three people to remind them to vote and be confident and clear to increase that yes rate. Stay calm. It is not personal, though it may feel that way sometimes. Many voters will not speak to you. You may speak to someone and say hi or thank them for being a voter, and they will not speak to you. There are voters who will completely ignore you, not even look at you when you speak to them. There are some that may at least look your way and they hear you, but there are some people who are going to completely ignore you. A few of them are going to be rude and unfriendly, but always remember to always stay calm and professional. We are the Democrats, so we are professional and we're going to make sure that that's the way we look at the polls, right? Don't take it personally. Focus on the friendly voters. You're going to have way more friendly voters that come out there than the mean ones, but you are going to run into the ones that are just rude. Stay focused on the purpose. So make a friendly and helpful connection with your voters. If you make a friendly connection, they're going to trust you when they're coming out and we're asking them, hey, do you want to get some of our information and come volunteer with us? Avoid getting distracted by chatting with other volunteers. You all are out there together. Of course, you're going to talk. Just don't get so distracted that you are leaving voters that are coming in and we're missing speaking to those voters. Here it is again. Be friendly, even with the Republicans, even if they aren't friendly back. You don't have to try to engage in a whole conversation, but we're still going to smile and say hi and thank them for being a voter and be very nice to everyone. Do not engage, debate, or argue with the Republican voters or poll greeters. It just is not a good look. Things escalate. You just want to make sure that you completely avoid that at all costs. If that means you have to walk away, then walk away and sit at the table if you need to. But just make sure that we're not engaging in those conversations. And avoid all political conversations while greeting. Again, we're poll greeting, so of course this is political, but we want to make sure that we don't have those conversations that are going to lead into debates and arguments. Keep your eyes on the goal, which is that voter. As voters are exiting, so they've gone in, they've cast their ballot, they're coming out, you want to flash that beautiful smile one more time and thank voters for coming out. Make sure that they know again that we are appreciative of them taking their time to come out and vote. As voters, if they want to stay connected to their Democratic neighbors, so again, this is your chance to grab those voters and try to get them in as volunteers. If interested, provide them a sign-up sheet, which will be in your bins, and collect at least a name and an email address. Explain to them that it's going to connect them with their precinct. They'll hear about events and volunteer opportunities. So we're going to take that list and then we're going to make sure that we turn that into headquarters. A positive exit is just as important as a warm welcome. So I use the example, if you have an awesome meal and you come in and you're at a restaurant and everything's great and the food's great and you go to leave and the host is a Debbie Downer and she's looking down and not smiling, it kind of takes a little bit off of the entire experience, right? So remember to have a positive, or make sure that the voters have a positive exit when they're leaving. This slide talks about voter support resources. So the number that you see on your screen is the North Carolina Voter Assistance Hotline. I want to preface this with saying if anything happens at the polls, or you are trying to report anything or anything like that, of course, always use your best judgment and call 911 if it's warranted. The Buncombe County Democratic Party headquarters should be your first contact, because we have an entire operations team who are trained to handle those concerns and complaints on a county level and escalate those appropriately. So if something happens, know that you have this number, but the first contact we want you to make is with headquarters. You can share this number if anyone's asking for this number for any voting questions or issues. You can encourage voters to call that number if they encounter problems. You can use this number to report voter intimidation or harassment. You can use it to resolve confusion around registration status. And then you should add this number to your contacts and make sure that you have it. Make sure that you know you can call this number and that you have it to give to someone else if they need it. Be alert, right? We need to make sure that we are protecting the vote. So you want to make sure that you are being alert for a threat or potential violence, intimidation, or harassment. If you notice that there are excessively long lines at the poll site that you're working at, if some voters seem confused, so if there's voter confusion about the procedures, you want to be alert for any rule breaking activities and make sure that it's not us doing it. We want to be looking out for those unhappy voters who are leaving without voting. Be alert for any problems with curbside voting or accessibility. If there's anyone on the line who is not familiar with curbside voting, there are people who go to a particular place at that polling site. For anyone who maybe can't get out of the car, or they'll have difficulty walking and getting out of the car, there are people who go to their cars to assist them. So we want to make sure that we aren't blocking access for those curbside voters. And then make sure also that you are on a lookout or paying attention and being alert for any misinformation or suppression tactics. Be observant and protect the vote. When voters have problems, so when those voters are leaving, you again want to make sure that you're paying attention to them as they exit or as they're leaving. Pay attention to the body language, to their facial expressions. If you feel like something's wrong, you can open that conversation by asking, hey, did you have any problems voting today? There are a couple of things or issues that they may have run into. So were the poll observers intrusive, intimidating, or interfering with the process? Did you have to submit a provisional ballot instead of a regular ballot? Did they just genuinely have a negative experience inside of the polling place? Were those voters, for whatever reason, turned away or unable to cast a ballot for any reason? Did the location run out of ballots or necessary supplies? And then the root cause. Just make sure that you're listening carefully to discover exactly why they are discontent or frustrated. What you can do is to document the issue. Write down the details of that complaint or incident immediately while it's fresh in your head. If you're like me, if you don't, I've got 1,000 reminders in my phone right now of things that I need to do throughout the day, or else I'm going to miss them. So if you don't write that information down while it's fresh, you may forget some of those key points that that voter told you. So make sure that you write that information down. You want to call the headquarters immediately. The number is listed here. We will also send out these slides at the end, of course, but if you don't have our headquarters saved in your phone, save that number in your phone. You want to collect the information, so take down the voter's name, their phone number, and address for follow-up. And then a call again, you can call the North Carolina Voter Assistance Hotline for guidance on voters' rights issues. But again, we want the first call to be to headquarters because we do have people staffed there who can help you as well. If for whatever reason you can't get through, then of course you have the Voter Assistance Hotline as well. And then again, for emergency situations, use your best judgment, call 911 immediately if the situation warrants it. So if there's a threat to anyone's safety or a threat to your safety, call 911. Reporting issues. So again, if you need to report an issue, you do want to report it to the chief judge. Notify the chief judge immediately. Remember that you have to remove all partisan tags, badges before entering the polling place. So if you have on a, you know, I don't know, Kamala hat or something like that, and you need to go and report something to the chief judge, you want to make sure that you take the hat off or that you cover it up if it's a shirt. You're going to have a coat on anyway. It's freezing. So most likely you'll have a jacket on to cover something up. But remember that you do that before you go into the polling place. Again, be sure that you contact the headquarters first, and then you want to make that report to the chief judge. Here it is again. Save that contact information. So if you don't have that number, save it in your contacts so you're prepared, and then report anything to the headquarters. So the rules, professionalism matters, right? It is 2026, and you can bet that there are going to be people standing out there with phones just waiting to get the next best thing that they can post to TikTok or Facebook, wherever they're posting their things, right, to try to go viral. We don't want to be in one of those videos, acting crazy or being unprofessional because we are the Democrats. So your behavior may be observed and or videotaped. Follow the rules strictly. Be professional at all times. Even if you get upset, remember to remain professional. Remember that you present the party and keep your interactions positive and calm. The 50-foot boundary. So we've talked about that buffer zone earlier in the training. We're going to talk about the buffer zone now. There is a boundary line that is strictly enforced. You can look for an orange cone or a sign that'll say something like no campaigning beyond this point. Normally at our polling sites, it's an orange cone and there's a sign taped to it that is outlining that 50-foot boundary. You cannot cross that boundary you cannot cross that boundary and do certain things. So again, you cannot wear your political literature, so campaign logos, hats, t-shirts, anything like that cannot be beyond that point and inside of the buffer zone. Silence is required regarding campaigning once voters cross that line. So once they get past that orange cone, you're no longer supposed to be campaigning and speaking to them about going into the polls. That's why you want to make sure that we're approaching them when they're in the line so that we have an opportunity to have that last conversation with them before they get into the building. And you cannot block sidewalks, rush voters in the parking lot, or impede their approach. Additional rules: ensure that you follow these specific restrictions to maintain compliance and professionalism at the polling place. You cannot approach curbside voters. So do not approach vehicles or attempt to talk to voters in that designated curbside voting area. There are specific people who are working with those people. We cannot approach those vehicles. The Buncombe Dems do not share table space. So do not allow other organizations like the Sierra Club to display their literature on our official table. So we'll have a table out there. You'll most likely have a tent where you just can't allow those other clubs to have stuff on our table. And then again, do not enter the building wearing any partisan logos or badges. Cover them completely before taking bathroom breaks or having to enter into that building. All right, I'm going to cover a couple of very common voter questions. So one of those questions you may get when you're at the polls is, can I register to vote here? Now, during early voting, the answer is absolutely yes. We want to make sure people understand that they can register to vote. It's one-stop shop during early voting. So same day registration is available. You can register and cast your vote at the same time. On election day, it's not allowed. The registration is closed at that point. Same day registration is not available on election day. Can I vote here? During early voting, one stop, yes, any site in the county you can vote at. That voter can vote at any one of those sites in the county as long as it's within your county. So any of those early voting sites, it is a yes during early voting. On election day, you can only vote in your precinct. So your assigned location is required. You have to vote at the precinct where you have lived for 30 plus days. And this little site here, you again will get the slide, is just a way for you to look up your what your status is and what your precinct is and things like that. Can I hand in my absent? What do I do? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the other slide. What if I don't have a photo ID? You can vote anyway. Make sure that people know that they do not need to leave without voting. Encourage the voter to go inside. They can complete an ID exception form and cast their ballot if they need to. We do want to encourage them, if they have time to go and get an ID, that they try to get their ID, but we also want to make sure that they understand that they can vote with that ID exception form and a provisional ballot as well. So if they can vote now, fix it later. If they vote provisionally, they do have to make sure that they take it to the Board of Elections with their ID to cure that ballot so that it counts. So that will be like a last case scenario that we want to happen, but we do want to make sure that any way that voter can vote, we want to make sure that they get that vote in. Can I hand in my absentee ballot here? Again, during early voting, it's a one-stop shop. Absolutely, they can. You'll wait in line, or they'll wait in line along with the other voters. Hand in the ballot directly to the chief judge. On election day, no, precinct drop off is not allowed. You must return it to the Board of Elections by 7:30 or the close of that polling time. Is it too late to vote? So the 7:30 rule, you can vote. If you are in that line by 7:30, as long as you're in the line, they have to allow those voters to vote. Do not leave the line. It's important to note that standard closing times are normally 7:30. On the weekends, they're a little earlier, but the times may vary. So just always make sure that you verify the specific polling hours with the Board of Elections, or just reach out to the Buncombe County Democratic Party as well. This strategic goal plan came down directly again from the North Carolina Democratic Party. This is our path to fairer maps and a balanced court. So they want you all to know the plan. Of course, we need to reelect Justice Anita Earls in 2026, flip those seats in 2028. This will be available in the slide. It's also available at headquarters on the table if you want to pick one of those up. And then finally, we want to thank you all again for volunteering as a poll greeter. There's no small piece to this puzzle. There's no part that's more important than the other part, or no person more important than the other person. Everything that we do is very important to trying to get a Democrat elected. So we appreciate you for volunteering as a poll greeter. Those numbers are there again for you to have, but again, they will be in the slide. So you have your voter assistance line and the Buncombe County headquarters. Be sure that you have those in your phone. All right. The board, is there